Hi, welcome to the Shelley Studio. Today I am doing my next few days in my 100-day project. And this one is number 4. And the weekend before I did this one, let's see, what date was this? 24th? What day was the Saturday? Can't remember. So my friend and I took a drive out to Delta. It's a little over an hour away from where I live, and they had a snow goose festival, or snow goose, anyways. And I thought it would be fun to see the migration of the snow geese, and I took a few photos along the way. And this is a photo of a field out in Delta, so we drove down there and went looking for the geese, right? And there's a reservoir out there, and in the middle of the day they're usually out in the reservoir bathing, drinking, and hanging out. And there's usually thousands of them. So we went out there to the reservoir, and there was probably a couple hundred way in the distance, little teeny dots. And they have a Department of Wildlife Resources. I think that's what the division's called. They have a person out there. They have several people out there, and they can direct you to where you might be able to see these snow geese. And they told us about a field, and everywhere's a field. Like, it's farmlands everywhere in Delta. And so they explained this field. So we went out there and saw nothing. But I took a few pictures. I do eventually find the snow geese, but this is the picture of one of the fields, and I'm just kind of abstracting it a little bit, putting my little trees on there. And yes, mountains around here are very tall. We have the Rocky Mountains. So we have very tall mountains in the background. If you see tall mountains in the background, it's probably a picture in Utah when I do my little landscapes. Or if there's not, I just decided not to put the mountains in. Anyways, I did do trees rather than just branches and limbs because it's a lot easier to collage little round tree shapes than to draw in the branches this small. Excuse me. Yeah, just using, it looks like I have, the sky was a little bit of watercolor paper, and then some Braille off paper. Have a chunk of some origami script paper. And that, I guess, is the field, the light brown. And then I cut out a little yellow shape to look like the building in the background. I'm just giving my trees a little texture. Make it look like there's some branches there. Oh, and then I'm going over with my Stabilo and creating a little bit of shading just to hopefully give it some extra depth. It's amazing how little of that black stays when it dries. It looks really dark now, but it lightens up when it's dry. You'll see in the picture. And we'll pretend that mountain in the background has snow on it. The little purple and white. Because it all did. Had snow on it. Alright. So that was day 4. The next one is day 5. And I wrote on the back, I've been writing the locations on the back, and I put imaginary landscape, but I feel like this was a real landscape, a real place. Oh, I know what it was. I had looked on Google. It was inspired by a Google image. And then I took liberties. And this time I really add a ton of layers. And hopefully you guys won't get too tired of collaging, because I got 100 days of collaging coming up. I can speed them up faster. I do have them more than double speed, a little bit more than double the speed. Just because there's a lot of fiddling. On some of them, I do try to have all the pieces prepared before filming so that you're not seeing me sit here and tear. But early on, you see me sit here and tear all the pieces. More fun papers. That background, that's the sky. It did have stamps on it, but I thought it worked as a neutral sky, even though it's got like leaves and flowers stamped on it. None of my papers are plain unless it's construction paper or colored cardstock. Like, I do a bit of a solid green, and that is just colored cardstock. Oh, and that dark green is a file folder. A piece of file folder. I needed a little extra dark in there. So, are any of you doing the 100-day project? How are you getting along? Have you made it this far? So there's my colored cardstock. I find it, I don't want to use it because it's just plain. But I'm running out of green. I had to go hunt down some more green paper that had fun printed green paper. And then another, it's out of a book. It's got a little bit of shimmer paint on it for some reason. I have no idea. You know, you save these bits and pieces of paper till you can't remember where or how you came up with them. And then we're going to put a little pond right there. Like a little body of water. It's not exactly, we'll consider it folk art style because, yeah, it is not perspective-wise very good. But we are just abstracting our landscapes just for fun, right? Little practice. This is only number 5. Hopefully they'll get better. I decided to just draw the whole tree in. I think I like collaging the trees like on the previous one. I think I like the results of collaging the trees better than just painting them on. And again, adding some shading so everything doesn't look completely flat and cartoon-like. Still, it's folksy. It's okay. It's folksy. And yeah, that really lightens up when it dries. It's crazy. But you'll see. I had to redo the dark a couple of times on the trees to make sure they were dark. And there it is. That shading just looks like a smudge. Alright, so this next one is also a field in Delta, and this time, so we went out to the field that was empty and it wasn't there, and I'm like, okay, we'll go back to the reservoir one more time. I'll see if I can get a closer shot of the birds that were on the water. So I went around a different way, ran into someone who said they knew where the snow geese were, and so we went off to another field, and this time we saw the snow geese. And there were thousands of them in this field. And we just sat and watched. I mean, there were people out there with their lawn chairs just watching the geese. Before we'd gotten there, they had told us where they were, and then I saw tons of them in the air flying and circling, and I'm like, oh, they're not going to be there by the time we get there. They've been scared away. They're all in the air flying. By the time we got to the field, they'd all settled back down, and they were in that field. And there were people lined up along the road just watching the birds for a long time. It was funny. We did sit there for quite a while and watch the snow geese. Several of them would get up and fly in circles and stuff, and they'd come back down. But I guess they're headed north. They like cold, and they're headed up to cooler areas for the summer. That was interesting. Yeah. They're headed to the Arctic. I guess that's where they breed. So there was a silo in this field, so I cut out a little silo. And then I decided I would use the notes of the sheet music to represent the birds. So I'm doing a line. The picture, if you don't know what you're looking at in the photos I have, it is hard to tell that those are birds. I do have a zoom, so I have the ability, like I have like a real camera with like a real zoom, and so I could get close enough to discern that they were birds. I'll see if I've got one on my iPad. That's where I do the editing. If I do, I'll plug it in here somewhere, so you can see a picture of the birds. Maybe the picture this was taken from. And yeah, just using the book that the music came out of. It's pretty brittle. It's really old. And just sticking the number on there, because why not? And then I had another piece that had another number, so I used it too. So a couple of numbers on there. Oh, and then I decided there were a few flying in the sky, so I'm just breaking off, because yeah, it's not tearing, just breaks. Breaking off a few musical notes to throw in the air to be the birds flying in the air. I thought it was clever at the time. Here's the last one. And of course, then I've got to add my shading. So pulling out my Stabilo, putting a few scriggly marks to look like trees. The mountains look pretty low here, but it's still the Rockies. Well, we were facing west, so those mountains are a little lower than the ones to the east. So Not quite as tall as the Rockies behind me. The Wasatch Range of the Rockies. And there we go. So I added a picture here. So you see all those geese? Alright, so this next one is a quick one. I've had this little mini collage just sitting in my scraps because I thought it was so interesting. And it was almost the right size. So I decided this was going to be one of my collages. So this one's really fast. I'm roughing up the edges because I can't tear it. It's some of the papers are really thick and it's layers collaged together. So I am just gluing this one down and we'll try to make it look like a landscape. It kind of works. Anyways, this is day 7. And I put a note. Scraps already together, made imaginary landscape. Oh yeah, I put a little house there. Or a little barn. I don't know. Something. Put some trees in. Some scrub. And a little bit of shading. And I do it with the Stabilo, and then I go over it with my pen, just to really emphasize the different parts. But yeah, that is day 7. Let me know what you think. Did you like them? Which one is your favorite? I like the first one, which was the field in Delta, and I like the snow geese, the field with the snow geese in it. And put the musical notes. Those are my 2 favorites out of this batch. What's going to be really hard is once I get all 100 done, deciding which one's my favorite out of 100. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. It really helps me. Leave me a comment if you'd like. And thanks for watching. Have a nice day.